Welcome back. Now we answer questions we've received from you, our viewers. If you have a question, visit our website, QuranSpeaks.com. Dr. Shabir, the question is, why did God deceive people by making one of Jesus' followers take the form of Jesus? Why would God lie or deceive?
Well, to say that God, deceived, this is a response to the classical Muslim commentary that says that God made someone look like Jesus and then that someone else was put on the cross instead of Jesus. Regardless of the merits of that particular interpretation and the reply that can be leveled, against that objection does not hold against the position that I have explained in our previous episodes, and I'll explain again now in brief. So basically, I say that a careful reading of the Gospels will indicate that perhaps there was some uncertainty about whether Jesus actually died on the cross. So if there was any deception here, it is not that God actively deceived anyone. It's just that the appearance of the whole scenario was such that people got the idea that Jesus died. So, for example, when in Mark's Gospel it says that Jesus breathed his last, like, how does anyone know that was his last breath? Did they have a breathalyzer to go and check to see if Jesus was still breathing? Or they just heard his loud cry and then suddenly they see him collapse and they figure, okay, that's it, he's dead now. Even the timing of his death is not quite so clearly agreeable among the Gospels, because one Gospel says that he let out his last cry before the curtain of the tomb of the temple was torn in two, and another says after the curtain of the temple was torn in two. So people did not have such precise knowledge as to when exactly Jesus died. Mm-hmm. But in Mark's Gospel, it is mentioned that when Pilate was requested for permission to let the body be buried, Pilate marveled that Jesus had died so soon, because according to that narrative, Jesus was only on the cross for a few hours. And generally, crucifixion took a few days to kill a person, because it's a slow and lingering death. To quicken the death, they might break the legs of the victim, or they might spear the victim in the side. And John's Gospel, to be sure, says that Jesus was speared in the side. But most modern commentators will say that that incident in John's Gospel is not historical. John added that in order to assure his readers that Jesus was really dead. But if this is not historical, then that assurance is not given, at least in the previous Gospel. So one would wonder then, what was the physical cause of the death of Jesus? As Raymond Brown, a commentator on the Bible, wrote in his 2-volume commentary on the Bible entitled Death of the Messiah, he says we must wonder what was the physical cause. So in short, God wasn't deceiving anyone, but God was leaving them to their own plots, but maybe in some way steering events such that in the end, Jesus was saved, and they got the impression that Jesus had been killed on the cross. But God rescued him from the cross alive and healed him and caused him to be raised up into heaven. Even there is a mention that Jesus died according to the scriptures, and the best piece of scripture that one could find to have this 3-day motif of Jesus being in the tomb and then resurrecting is a passage from Hosea, which actually speaks of God healing me on the second day, and something like this: God will heal me in 2 days, and then so this seems to be what happened in the case of Jesus. Not that he was resurrected from the dead, but that he was healed of his wounds from that crucifixion. So in the end, I believe that objection that says that, well, you guys are saying that God deceived and God doesn't deceive. Well, it doesn't hold against this narrative that Jesus might have appeared dead, but he wasn't actually quite dead. People then, if there was any deception, were deceived by their own, quick judgment on the issue. They quickly presupposed that Jesus died. They reached a hasty conclusion, but Jesus wasn't actually dead, and God knows best.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome. Our videos reach people all over the world. We hope you will seize the opportunity to share in the reward from God. Please support us today.